Hey everybody, it's Alex back with another division preview. Today we're talking about the NFC South. It's the second of 8 division previews on the channel this year. And I'll be honest, this wasn't a great division last year. This wasn't a very good division at all. Tampa Bay was a good team, made the playoffs, were pretty close to winning a playoff game again. But I'm interested more in a couple other teams in this division. We did get to see some glimpses of what is to come from 2 teams in this division, namely Atlanta and Carolina. So I'll be interested to see if the division becomes a little bit more competitive, not just with each other, but in the NFC this year. I don't know if it happens, but why don't we talk about it and see what happens? At least what I think is going to happen. Now, before going through this division team by team, I want to see how their schedule and their opponent list came together because, again, each division shares the majority of opponents throughout the season. First off, the 6 division games with your divisional rivals, that's pretty self-explanatory. The 2 teams they're playing on their rotation this year, the NFC West and the AFC East, not the toughest divisions in the world, but could provide some nice challenge for these teams. And then let's go ahead and take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for example, the reigning division champs. This year, based on each team's placement in the division, taking Tampa, for example, they'll play the Philadelphia Eagles at home, a team from the NFC East, and they'll play on the road against a team from the NFC North and the AFC South this year. In this case, for Tampa Bay, they'd be at Detroit and at Houston. So there you go. That's how the divisional schedule has been constructed. Now let's go ahead and talk each team by team. Let's start with the New Orleans Saints, a team that is in a real state of limbo right now. Not exactly sure what the direction is of this franchise. They're coming off a pretty rough campaign. Derek Carr just retired, so now they're in this weird spot where it really does feel like they're tanking this year. I'm going to be honest. Because when you really look at this roster, it does not inspire confidence. The day I'm recording this is when Spencer Rattler was announced to be the starting quarterback for the Saints. I mean, it was either him or Tyler Shuck. I don't know what they're thinking. They didn't pursue anyone in free agency. It's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be a long year for Saints fans. Kamara, Olave, Shaheed. I mean, the receiving core isn't awful. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I like Chris Olave. But we'll see what they do. We'll see how often Taysom Hill gets used with Kellen Moore in his first year as head coach. Cam Jordan just hanging around mainly to be a veteran presence on the defensive end. But again, this roster does not inspire a lot of confidence that this team will go far this year. So taking a look at the schedule, this reflects this. I think it's a really rough year for the Saints. 3-14. I struggle to even find those 3 wins on the schedule. They're going to have to beat somebody. If there is an 0-17 contender this season, I really do think it'd be New Orleans. And it's really unfortunate to say that they kind of crashed and really burned. We're not even half a decade out of Drew Brees' retirement. Or well, this will be the 5th year after Drew Brees' retirement. So, I mean, they've crashed so hard. I think that they're really reeling after the fact that Derek Carr retired. And they're really hoping they can go ahead and grab a quarterback in the draft this year. Specifically, I would assume that their eyes are on Arch Manning from Texas. I would assume that would be who they're looking for, but who knows? Again, I don't think that... I think he could actually stay another year at Texas if he wanted to, so we'll see. But, yeah, I think that they beat a couple teams. They get one road win early against Seattle, maybe. If everything goes right, and I think Spencer Rattler plays a little better than we think, and they're able to maximize what they can get out of this roster, I think maybe they beat Carolina once. They beat the Titans. They beat the Giants or the Patriots. I think they could possibly get to 6 wins. But as it stands, I don't think there is any feasible world where the Saints win more than 5 games this year. I have them going 3-14 this year. Sorry, Saints fans. Up next are the Atlanta Falcons, a team that I think might actually be very interesting this year. A team that I feel might be boom or bust. A team that could fight for the playoffs, maybe even steal a playoff spot, but also could see some underperforming. We don't know what's going to happen, and that's mainly because they're giving Michael Penix the full-time starting job. Kirk Cousins is now going to be the backup, but they have the pieces here to try and get to the playoffs with how well the team seemed to play towards the end of the year. In a sense, the amount of potential, I think that's the better way to put it, the amount of potential that we saw from the Falcons at the end of last season really inspires confidence for this team to get to the postseason this year. Again, that skill position group looks pretty good. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. Kyle Pitts was involved a lot more towards the end of last year with Penix under center. So I think that this could potentially, if there is a Kyle Pitts breakout season, this has to be the one. If it isn't, and he kind of looks again similar to what we've seen so far, I don't know how much longer this team will keep him. But it'll be interesting to see what this Falcons squad can do with a nice secondary to complement a good skill position group. I like A.J. Terrell. I like Jesse Bates a lot. So we'll see what this defense can do. Leonard Floyd's going to have to do a lot of the carrying in the front end, it looks like. But can they outscore their way out of problems sometimes? I think that might be the question for Atlanta this season. As we look at this team and their schedule, I think they actually have a nice hot start, getting a couple nice wins to start the year. Tampa and Washington both at home before the bye week. I think that they get 2 huge wins, setting up a really, really fun showdown week 6 against Buffalo on Monday night. Again, primetime games in gold, other standalone games in orange, mainly here. The Germany game against the Indianapolis Colts. I think this Atlanta team is going to be really inconsistent this year. I think that they're going to pick up a couple nice wins, but also really fall flat in a couple of games. I think that they drop that game against Indy. They drop against the Jets. So I think that it dropped that game against New Orleans too. So I think that they have a hot start, but really fall off a cliff towards the end of the year, and evidently finish up at 9-8. With the amount of losses they take at the end of the year, that would be a really tough finish for Atlanta this year. I think that they can get to 11 wins, though, easily. Pick up a win against New Orleans and the Jets. There it is right there. Pick a win against the Colts, but you trade that away for maybe losing to Washington or Tampa. So I think that there's easily 11 wins on this schedule for the Falcons. But if Michael Penix isn't the answer, and they cannot get much out of this skill position group, they very well could lose to Tampa, to Washington, to Minnesota or San Francisco even, and fall down to 6 wins. So I feel like this is a boomer bust team. I feel like they're going to be a bit of an inconsistent team this year. You're going to have to hope that you see a good Falcons team more so than the bad Falcons team this year. But this is a ultimate toss-up team this year. I think this could go of one or two ways. They could overperform and pick up 11 wins, but they could very well also underperform and only hit 6 wins. But as it stands right now, I have them kind of nice in the middle here at 9-8 for the Atlanta Falcons. Up next, a very intriguing team, the Carolina Panthers. Another team that might as well be a bit of a boom or bust team. This is a team that's got a lot of interest in them this year. With the way that the Panthers played to end the 2024 season, a lot of people think that Bryce Young may have started to turn the corner and that him being benched last year was exactly what he needed to learn and grow and apply that to game, to film and to real-time game experience. So, Bryce Young returns for year number 3. This is where he'd probably need to take that next leap as a first overall quarterback. They have Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dowdle, Adam Thielen. I think that Tetairoa McMillan might as well be the wide receiver 1 at the end of the season, but for now, with him being a rookie, I'd probably have him as the second option, with Thielen being the veteran in the room. But the defensive side of the ball is, again, what makes me nervous with this Panthers team. I think the offense might have a really good season. They could play really well. But can the defense come through and make a couple key stops in big moments? They struggled to win big games last season. There are a couple. I especially think when they had that upset bid against Kansas City, they were able to come back and tie that game, but allowed Patrick Mahomes to just break off a huge run to get into field goal range. I think about that Atlanta game at the end of the year. Even though they won that game, they still allowed a crap ton of points. So we'll see what happens, but I think that if the defense can step up, this team might surprise people this year. Looking at the schedule for the Carolina Panthers, Dave Canales has his work cut out for him. I think they get off to a nice start with a couple wins early in the year, but it's that middle section of the year that does not inspire confidence. It's not necessarily looking great for them. Buffalo, Green Bay, at Atlanta. Their lone primetime game this year is at San Francisco on Monday Night Football. But as with last season, I think they're going to finish strong again, going 4-1 to end the year, with wins over teams like Los Angeles, Seattle, and Tampa Bay. But that middle stretch, I think, is what will put this team ultimately out of the playoffs this year. But they very well could pick up another 2 wins on their schedule. You could beat Dallas and the Jets. You could beat San Francisco and Jacksonville. You could beat New England and beat the Jets again or whatever, right? Like, there's any combination of 2 wins that you can find on this schedule for the Panthers to get to 10 wins. I think it could happen if they play to their potential. But also, if things go south once again and they really struggle and Bryce Young regresses, this team's not going to be very good. They easily lose to the Rams, the Bucs, the Seahawks, and probably the Falcons again to get to 4 wins. So, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Bryce Young played well enough to seem like he might be starting to figure it out a little bit. And we'll see some of that again this year, but I think that the team has some other areas to address to really get to that point of contending for a postseason spot, in my opinion. So I personally have the Panthers good for 8 wins this year. And finally, the reigning division champions, the 5-time reigning division champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this team is going to be really good this year. I really like the moves that they made in the offseason. I think that the move to sign Baker Mayfield was a really smart one. I think he's going to really find his groove with Tampa Bay this year. I really like this roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving coming into his own towards the end of last year. They got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and I even mentioned Emeka Egbuka, the rookie receiver from Ohio State. They are stacked at the receiver position. And they've got Kate Otten to complement them in the tight end game. But Todd Bowles is a defensive head coach, and I think that they still have a pretty good defense. I like that front 7. I like Vita Vea, Levante David's still there. Yaya Diaby had a pretty good year. And they've got Hassan Reddick to see if he can match that amazing season he had with the Eagles a couple years ago. And they still have Jamel Dean. They still have Antoine Winfield Jr. I think this roster is really complete top to bottom. And I think it translates to a lot of wins this year. Their schedule is not too tough. They've got a couple of primetime games, 4 of them, which is pretty nice. 3 of them on the road, so they only get 1 primetime game at home against the Falcons week 15. But they have a nice bye in the middle of the year, but I think they get the Texans on the road. I think they get the Lions on the road. They get the Rams on the road. I think that they've got a couple big games that they're going to win this year. I think that they start the season off with a loss to Atlanta. They have a bit of a puzzling loss to the Cardinals, but I think they'll be in a good enough position to rest starters against the Panthers come week 18. But yeah, no, this team looks really good in my opinion. I have them at 12-5, which might be a bit bullish on the team this year, but I don't know. I think that the team played really well last year. Maybe they lost a couple games that they really shouldn't have, but I think they're going to be pretty consistent this year. And then say their ceiling's 13-4. They get that win against Arizona or Carolina. There you go. There's 13 wins on the schedule. But again, that's all prediction. If things go wrong for the Bucs this year, they could lose a lot because there are a lot of big games here that they win. Those 3 road primetime games that I have them winning, they could easily lose all 3 of them, and you're down to 9 wins if things go awry. Then you find a way to lose maybe to Seattle or San Francisco, or you lose to the Patriots. And then, that any combination you can get to 7 wins. But I think that this team is going to be way closer to a ceiling than a floor this year. I really like them to win 12 games. I think the Bucs are going to take advantage of a division that isn't necessarily the strongest, but they'll get the wins when they need to in division to cruise to a division title, in my opinion. Looking at the final division standings, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the NFC South yet again. Not only winning it and going 12-5, but being the number 2 seed in the NFC this year. I think they take advantage of that schedule that they have. I think the Falcons are going to go 9-8 and just miss the playoffs by a game. So that crash towards the end of the season is really going to hurt. I think that the Panthers have a nice strong finish to get to 8 wins. And I think New Orleans finishes at the bottom with a 3-14 campaign to be in good position to lock up that number 1 overall pick. So what do you think happens in the NFC South this season? Does Tampa really win 12 games this year? Do they even have 2 teams that compete for the playoffs this year? Is it another year where the NFC South has a team that goes 10-7, 9-8, and that's about it? Or do you see it kind of like this, where maybe we have some up-and-coming teams in the NFC South that maybe fight for some playoff positions as the season goes on? Let me know what you think in the comments below, because this is going to be a very intriguing division this year to see whether or not they can live up to potential, or if it's just another year where the NFC South is the bottom of the barrel in the NFC. Make sure you like the video if you liked it. Make sure you subscribe if you really liked it. And, well, I'll see you guys in the next one.